Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Tuesday, April the 3rd, 2018. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is your third daily dose of happy for the day. Tuesday's the happiest day of the week, Tom. We get 3 doses of happy on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday's an unusual day. It's sort of like the day after Monday.
Yes.
And I always feel like, what is this day for? But it definitely is the day that people schedule things, I notice, for evening classes and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday and Thursday night.
Yeah. Tuesday's a good...
Wednesday and Monday should work too, but...
They should, but you're right. Tuesdays and Thursdays tend to be popular nights for going out and doing things or even staying in to do things. And either way, we're hoping that people are tuning in to the live podcast to join our doing a thing, because that's why we do it. We do it on Tuesday evenings so we can invite people like you to join us. And maybe we just might be able to get you to join us live on the program. Maybe talk about some stuff going on in your life. And the topic that Tom and I have been focusing on lately is positive self-talk. Maybe you've been practicing your own self-talk. Maybe you've got a report you can share with us. So really, any excuse at all will do. But we just wanted to talk to you guys, so that's why we're doing the Tuesday night show. Few programming notes, so to speak. First of all, a reminder for those who may not have seen the schedule and may not have heard about this, but Sundays, the Sunday podcasts with David Bartkey now happen in the evening. They're at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, rather than the morning time slot we were doing before. So, again, there's another opportunity to call during an evening if you're looking for an evening time to talk with us. Additionally, there is progress on the book that we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 months or so. The book now is the stage where everyone's submissions are edited except mine. I'm still writing a couple of them. I am submitting, believe it or not, Tom, I'm putting 7 stories into this book.
Well, it's your book, Walt. I think you're entitled to have 7 stories.
Well, I guess so, yeah. But I'm feeling prolific, I think, more than anything else.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And I've got 5 of them written, so I'm making good progress because, that means there's only 2 left. And the ones that I've written are the hard ones. The ones that are left are relatively easy, so I'm hoping to get those wrapped up tomorrow. And then once I've got those wrapped up, I'm going to start putting the book together. And when I start putting the book together, then I get to the stage where I share it with the other authors so they can see, whatever changes I've made and so forth. Everybody kind of signs off. And then it publishes. So we're getting really, really close. And as we've mentioned a number of times in the past, listeners of LOA Today are going to be able to get a free copy of the book. I don't yet have the details of how that's going to work. Quite honestly, I don't know exactly how it's going to work just yet. But one way or another, I promise you, listeners of the program are, for a very limited time, in a very limited time slot, they're going to be able to get a free copy of the ebook version of the book. And I also know that there are going to be 55 manifestation stories in this book. So lots and lots and lots and lots of manifestation stories. This is going to be the kind of book that, if you had it in paperback form, you'd want it to be on your coffee table. If you have it in PDF form or Amazon Kindle form or something like that, you want to have it, for your for just being able to access to read stuff whenever you need to be able to read stuff. So this is going to be well worth it. It's going to be a good book. And then finally, we haven't said this in a long time. And I think part of the reason that I haven't said this is because people did it, Tom, subscribe and share. Uh-huh. I did the numbers for March. Every month I check to see, what kind of listenership do we have, what are people listening to, where are they coming from, all that kind of stuff. And the numbers are continuing to increase. We had a little over 8,000 plays last month. We've topped 35,000 since we started counting in November 2016, so that's good. Wow. But the average user, now the average listener, we measure that in terms of what IP address they're coming from. Uh-huh. The average listener is listening to 45 shows a month.
Wow. That's a lot of shows.
That's a lot of we do 52 in a month.
Well, it's more than one a day.
Yeah. So they're listening to almost all the shows that we do on average. Now, you think there's going to be a few people who show up who, they're not interested or they only listen to 1 or 2. That means there's somebody else who's listening to 2 months worth.
Wow.
Think about that. That's just mind-blowing.
Now, how do
So,
you get those statistics?
so clear. Well, that's part of the software. The software tracks that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I mean, clearly people are gravitating to the program, and that just makes me thrilled to pieces. I'm just so happy about that. So I'll say it once again, just for those who haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and share because man, you're going to love this. Every indicator we've seen tells us our audience just loves it and they keep coming back and they keep coming back. So be sure and subscribe and share. You can do it right at the homepage, loatoday.net. If you're listening live, you're right there anyway. So, just go to the homepage. The instructions are there not only for subscribing and sharing, but also for calling into the podcast because there's a link there for the Zoom platform. That's what we use when Tom and I or Wendy or Cindy or Joel or David, whenever we're doing a podcast, that's the platform we use. So you can also just click the link and it'll help you download the software and boom, you're right there. You can talk to us. So feel free to give us a call because we're doing this evening show for you.
Yes. I would love to hear any questions people have about this particular topic that we've been on, which is how do you talk to yourself in ways that get you the results you want in your life? How do you tell stories about yourself and your life that you love to tell that even if they haven't happened yet?
Mm-hmm.
So that you're not just looking at what is and talking about, adding those elements that feel discouraging or depressing or otherwise not fun. You're not just talking about that stuff. And in fact, maybe you're not talking about it much at all. And you're talking about, well, what does it look like when it feels good? That this aspect, maybe it's my relationship, my friendship, my money situation, my career situation. What kind of story am I telling around the work I'm doing? What kind of story am I telling around the amount of money I'm bringing in or that's in the bank and how my lifestyle's, does my lifestyle feel good? What story do I tell about that?
Yeah. Is it progressing? Is it moving along? Is it static? What story am I telling? Because that story directly impacts what actually happens, which is, I tell you, I mean, I've been aware of this concept now for, well, let's see. So November 2008. So it's basically 9.5 years. And I'm still blown away by it. To this day, about what I think about, what I focus on, what my predominant thought pattern is, drives the kinds of experience that I end up having. That's just mind blowing to me.
That's the law of attraction, though, in the most fundamental sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Basically, what you're thinking about, and then ended up feeling, you can't help but attract that stuff into your life.
That's true. That's it. And the simple fact is that when we focus on what our self-talk is, we're really getting down to the meat and potatoes. We're getting to the core. Because that self-talk that most of us have, it's that voice that's in the back of our head. It's the little critical voice. It's the voice that's constantly telling us all the things that we should be a little bit afraid of and a little bit concerned about, and everybody should be worrying about this and all that kind of stuff. That's the voice I'm talking about. That's that negative self-talk. It is incredibly important to get rid of it. And let me tell you 2 reasons why. First, I can tell you this now from experience because within the last 46 days, I got rid of it. And it's the best thing in the world to have the silence instead of all that negative chatter going on in the back of my head. That's probably the biggest benefit of all right there. No more chatter that's all this crazy stuff going on. It's quiet. It's so quiet. It's lovely. And then more importantly, it means I am now in a better place mentally to focus on what I do want to attract. And that's what the positive self-talk is all about. But boy, getting rid of that negative chatter is just, I mean, how long did it take you to get rid of yours? Do you remember, Tom?
Well, as far as a voice that was kind of plaguing me to the point that I was very uncomfortable, I worked on that I really had it bad for about 4 years after my wife divorced me, and I lost a lot of money and things like that because of the divorce. Mm-hmm. And I was sick and lost a few other things like my job that I'd had for 27 years and things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, a bunch of stuff happened. And then that's when negative self-talk began to build during that time. And I didn't really get a handle on it until I started to listen to Abraham because a psychic directed me in that direction. And I knew about Abraham, but I hadn't listened in like 5-6 years. and it didn't seem that relevant to me. But then the psychic said, you got to go listen to Abraham. And so I started going to these live video feeds of the programs. And that's when things really started to change. And negative self-talk began to reverse as soon as I started to listen to Abraham. And it's been reversing ever since. But it took about a year, the first year, to really get to the place where I knew that I was no longer at all plagued by anything, that was really of much significance, that where my most all my day for the last 3 to 4 years is really quite comfortable. I mean, I'm hardly ever at odds with myself in any way. It's the only time sometimes as I get up in the morning and other times I can slip into it, I mean, even before this podcast, I was feeling, just sort of lethargic and wondering what that was about. And so I tried to do some channeling and, so like journaling and that helped a little bit, but I realized that whatever I was telling myself was on a deep level. It's like deep self-talk. But there wasn't a huge amount of angst. I realized when I journaled or channeled that I was actually feeling a lot of peace also. And that I was just giving myself permission just to be in this place of non-productiveness.
Yeah, right.
And that it was okay that I wasn't completely on top of, preparing for the podcast with all kinds of notes and things like sometimes I have, because I want to be as resourceful as I can when I get on the show. And yet my spirit was telling me just to relax and just telling me, Source was like saying, everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Very good. That's really good.
But anyway, yeah. So it was once I started listening to Abraham, that's when things changed dramatically.
Yeah. Abraham is truly remarkable to listen to. I have to agree with that. The only thing that I would say regarding negative self-talk is it actually didn't help me get rid of my negative self-talk. That isn't what did it for me. But that just goes to prove it doesn't have to be the same source for everybody. I mean, how you do it is how you do it. The method that you find that works is the method that you find that works. It's that simple. And it's not necessarily going to be the same for you or me or for a listener or anybody else. The main thing, though, is I kept trying things. I kept trying different modalities. Somebody would talk about affirmations, so I tried affirmations. No, it didn't work. Or
did you do tapping?
Oh, I tried a little bit of tapping. Yeah, all it did was give me a headache. I mean, it just didn't do anything.
Well, you don't tap on your head the whole time.
Oh, is that the idea?
Just 2 times on the head, and then
oh, no wonder.
2 or 3 times, and then you go. Yeah, see, that'll give you a headache.
That's true. Yeah, no, actually, that wasn't it. But yeah, it just didn't really do it for me. But, that's okay. It's really just keep trying things until you find what works, because that's what I kept doing. It took me the longest time before I found, even 2 things that I could do to just get myself into a better mood, let alone getting rid of, the negative self-talk. But I did. And I actually now have, really 4 or 5 things that I can do at any given time if I'm just not feeling good. I mean, you mentioned you were in a not so great mood when you started the show. Of course, doing the podcast, that's a great way to lift the mood up. And that's one of my 5 things. But, if we're not doing a podcast, I'm sure you have it. I have different things that I can do as well to just, lift my spirits up. But I had to work to find them. I had to go after them. That's my point. It wasn't just, it wasn't just plug and play. Somebody else's method, I plug it in, it works great, I'm done. No, it wasn't like that at all.
Well, one thing nice about this topic today of telling better feeling stories is that according to what I've experienced and definitely what Abraham says, and is that if you get good at telling better feeling stories and you actually practice it, they suggest that you actually practice doing that you will actually develop it at like developing a skill set or a muscle. It takes doing it over and over again sometimes. And I can see why, because I was going to read an example of how they do it, which we've done each show, but would that be all right?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay. And I want to also give this little bit of advice that Abraham gave about telling better feeling stories. They said one thing is that you've got to leave getting any response from others to your stories out of the equation and look only for the response that you get from your alignment with who you are.
Yeah.
We know it's entertaining to talk about things that evoke responses from others. Sometimes you want their sympathy. Sometimes you want their understanding. Sometimes you just want them to be on your wavelength with you so they'll understand what you understand. But you have to leave what everybody else thinks out of the equation and only put into the equation what you think and the vibration that you're offering and the vibration of the source within you.
That's such an important point. I mean, I don't know if we can stress that one enough. I see it all the time on Facebook. There's that Facebook group that I participate in. Wendy does too. And inevitably, in any given week, we will see, I'm kind of guessing here, 25, 30 posts of people who are looking for feedback from somebody else about what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Directly talking to what you're talking about there. I mean,
exactly.
It's just not a well, first of all, just from a non-LOA perspective, it's really not a good idea to just try what somebody else does and figure that's all you have to do. I mean, think about it. Forget about LOA for a second. If your next door neighbor says, I like to jump up and down on a log because it makes me feel good, does that mean the first thing you want to do is go try jumping up and down on a log? So why would you do the same thing with this stuff that you really don't know anything about called LOA? And yet that's what people do. I mean, it boggles my mind.
You mean when they expect other people to understand them when they talk about it?
Yeah. Not only to understand them, but also to give them the clue. Well, okay, I want to, I want to attract my boyfriend back. Okay, so tell me, how do I do that? How do I attract my boyfriend back?
Right.
Like there's.
Well, I've had clients that ask me that exact question.
Oh yeah.
A number of them.
And yet every single one of them is.
One is get the girlfriend back.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the other one, right? Get the girlfriend back.
Get his wife back, actually.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I guess it's easier when you're married because I'm already married and I'm happily married, so it's not quite as difficult for me, I guess. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I remember what it was like being single. I was single as an adult for 22 straight years with no good relationships, so I do remember what it's like.
Yeah.
And yet, even in my darkest times, I'm not sure that I ever would have gone around saying, so how do I get my ex back? I mean, seriously. So yeah. I guess maybe I'm the wrong person. I just don't get it. But that's what so many people do. How do you get my ex back? I mean, why would you even want to? Your ex doesn't want you anymore. Why do you want that person back?
Well, there's all kinds of reasons. People really attach their sense of love and receiving of love, and probably there's also some duty and honor and other things that get involved. But they feel it with a certain person. I've literally had clients tell me that if they were to leave an abusive partner, that they would no longer have love in their life. And because this is the only person they've ever been in love with, and they're 23 years old, or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm changing the conditions. But
right.
It seemed to me that is where the work, then I've noticed every single client, the work is always about them loving themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all the work gets directed. And then as that expands, then there is that openness to possibly attract the same person back into their life. And if not that person, possibly a new partner that'll even fit their needs better, and their experience of love will even be heightened. Not to mention their love of themselves will be finally in a good place where they can be in a relationship without expecting the other person to fulfill them in any way. And that's the nice place to get to when you just know that you're the source of your own happiness, and that you can't look for love in the wrong places, and one of the wrong places to look is in another person's opinion of you. So
yeah,
I think that's why that Abraham emphasizes this stuff, and why you said it's so important, because we want somebody else to get us. And I know I've been on that track for quite a few years. I call it, I'm looking for my kindred spirit tribe, my kindred spirit friends who, can sit around and talk like you and I are doing, actually. Mm-hmm. So this is exactly what I wanted, which was, if I get into something with all my heart and soul, that I can speak to somebody else and they get me and they know what I'm talking about, or at least they want to ask questions and get interested. And, I know I have some friends that aren't interested at all in knowing anything about what I'm into. And it's interesting because then we're on different wavelengths, or on different planets, different radio stations, So when we talk, what that other person hears is different often than what I'm meaning because they don't understand where I speak from.
This is true.
So I'm
Yeah.
always have to think that, well, am I translating it into their language, a language I used to speak, but now I speak a different language,
Hmm.
sort of. And so, yeah, it's an interesting thing, but yeah. So that's why if you want to get better at telling better feeling stories, what Abraham said is begin to try to hear the story that the source within you tells. They said, so that the source within you tells the story, you are worthy beyond description. And then if you say things aren't going well in my life, then there's a clash between those two stories. Or if source says all is well for you and you say, no, it's not, well, so, if we're constantly contradicting what our source is saying, then that's why we feel anxiety and fear and worry, I believe, is because we're not going in the direction that source knows is best for us to go in.
Yeah, that's true. The thing though, if you're going to even consider the idea of doing positive self talk, though, I think you have to start with the idea that that positive self talk has to be for a reason that is for you.
Yeah,
I mean, again, this is me just talking about people who are always trying to get clues from somebody else. Well, I should do this. What should I do? This? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? It's about helping you, and you're the best person in the best place to help you. Now, I grant you. I mean, you were talking about situations where people have very dysfunctional psychologies going on, and like you said, people definitely need to work on loving themselves better, and that's not easy to do if you're in the bad spot. That's a pretty tough thing to do, but nevertheless, it's something that you have to do. Nobody can do it for you, you know. So yes, it's a good idea to work with a coach or a life coach or a therapist or somebody along that line if you are struggling with something where you're kind of attached to something unhealthy, then by all means, you definitely need to have somebody to help you through that. But even then, a good coach doesn't tell you this is how you do it. This is what you do. A good coach helps you discover that. It helps you.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, you have to explain things to them, but that doesn't mean that you're spending all your time saying, well, think this way, think this way. That's not what you're doing.
no.
So we have to
No,
have a
you're just
realistic
trying to
expectation.
teach a person how to fish rather than give them the fish. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
really all it really comes down to. And
Yeah.
that's why, like this podcast tonight, it's and what we did on the other two podcasts that were about positive self talk is we both tried to demonstrate for ourselves and for the listeners what is it like when you're doing positive self talk? How does that sound?
Because it
I
sounds
never
different. It's not what we're used to hearing. Certainly not from ourselves and certainly not from
right.
others. I mean, what's the average conversation that goes on, say, in the workplace? Oh, it's, all the things that the wife wanted me to do that I didn't want to do this weekend. And why can't you just leave me alone? And I'm having trouble with Bill over in cubicle 3 and blah, 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 all this stuff. That's the usual talk. You don't hear people saying, Tom, I've been sitting here taking a little 5-minute coffee break before I get back to my desk, and I've been thinking, I just want to dream for a moment about how wonderful it's going to be when I get the house of my dreams. You just don't hear that conversation. That doesn't happen in the typical workplace, you know?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that's really different about law of attraction and practicing better feeling stories and better feeling thoughts and positive self talk is that it really is not the dominant thing that you hear in the society, right? All around us on
Right.
television, in novels, so many sources of most of our media information and conversations with others, whether they're in our family or their friends or they're our partner, are often, if you listen to it, it's not all stuff that's encouraging and opening the doors to expansion and love and greater freedom, greater joy, greater peace of mind. I mean, and it's not that we're always in that place, but are we headed in the direction that we want to go? I mean, if somebody wants to go towards negativity, that's their choice. But I think most people want to go towards a better feeling life. And so would like each day to be a little better than the day before, if possible.
Sure.
And if we develop this propensity for talking to ourselves and others in ways that lean towards the possibilities of it working out. I mean, I noticed that watching football with my friends during the season, and sometimes there'll be like 5 or 6 people in the room, and I just can watch the entire trend go from really being positive when the team has just done something wonderful, and then being really so negative as soon as they do something.
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
And people pile on. They pile on a lot more readily, it seems, into the negative side of things.
Oh, yes.
Always during the game, you got to be really far ahead for them to not be in doubt. And I'm always sitting there going, why don't we just say stuff that we want to have happen? And they're like, because we're talking about what is happening, Tom, what's real. Now, they don't quite talk to me like that, but I have actually watched whole games turn around during Bronco seasons, and I knew that the game turned around because of that group of 4 people in that room.
Mm-hmm.
We all got positive.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, I'm just saying.
Oh no, I've done the same thing. I really do believe it.
The fans are like that. That's what makes a good fan, is that they don't abandon their team no matter what.
Right.
They're always like, I got faith in you guys. I got faith in you guys. And I imagine that's what a good coach does at halftime. He goes in there and he says, I got faith in you guys. We've done this before, and we're going to do it again, aren't we?
That's right.
And he says that maybe they say nothing about except what they want to accomplish in that second half. I don't know, but positive self-talk.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've said this before, and I've never actually tested it by going to Las Vegas or whatever and placing a bet on it. But I would consider this to be a safe bet. If you wanted to pick the winner of a game, I don't care what the sport is, doesn't make any difference. I don't care who the teams are, doesn't make any difference. All you have to do is go to the fan sites of the respective teams and check out what's going on in the conversations about the upcoming game and find out which ones have the higher percentage of people who are down on their own team. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, that's the losing team in the game.
That's interesting.
And it's going to be not because that team is a bad team and their fans are knowing that's a bad team, so they're expecting the reality. It's because their energy helps the team to lose. Their energy is basically so bad, whereas the opponent's fans' energy is so good that it fuels the players. The players don't even necessarily know where it's coming from, but they can feel it.
Right. Because we're all a lot more connected than we ever think. This is in the metaphysical, or probably even in the quantum physical way. We're so connected that,
And for anyone who
and feeling really makes a difference.
Oh yeah, and for anyone who doubts it, okay, let's say you don't believe in law of attraction at all. Let's say you think it's a bunch of hooey. Fine. In any sport, can you name one sport where home field advantage doesn't give you at least a 60% chance of winning? Because I can't. I've never heard of one. Every single sport in existence that's a team sport, the home team typically has a 60% chance or better of winning. Why? Why is that? Could it possibly be because of the energy of their fans?
Yeah, and the energy of the whole town, and the familiarity of their own playing field, and yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Of course that's what it is.
Yeah.
So rejecting the idea that fans who aren't even in the field couldn't be influencing them is basically saying the only way you can influence somebody is if you're in earshot of them.
Yeah. Right.
That's really what that's saying,
I believe that's a really good project to take on for me, is to convince people, like through my public speaking or something, that their vibration, I experience it with clients all the time and with myself, but that our vibration goes further than we think.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a, they've really believed that in quantum physics, that when one thing happens in one corner of the universe, it simultaneously happens in another corner of the universe. And, they call it spooky action at a distance or something, but how things can so amazingly affect things across vast quantities of time and space. that would make no sense whatsoever because it's happening simultaneously. There is no time for the speed of light to travel. And that's something that's so cool to me because it's basically just saying that there is a connection of consciousness that is instantaneous throughout the whole universe. And therefore, I believe that what we do vibrate with, and that's why, a physicist, a practitioner of Qigong, they put him into a room at Stanford University, and he's an expert Qigong practitioner. And Qigong practitioners can send their energy; they can project their energy, and then they have a lab in Cincinnati at the medical school there, some school back east there, and they seal in a lead sealed chamber. They have 3 rows of. Did I tell you this story before?
No, I don't recognize this one.
Oh, they have three rows of petri dishes, and in each row of 6 petri dishes, they're growing a different form of cancer cells.
Oh.
And so they have the Qigong master at Stanford University in California sit in a lead coated chamber. It's called a Faraday chamber, where it's supposedly designed so no waves could get in or out of the chamber. No radio waves, nothing. And the same is where the cancer cells are back in Cincinnati. And then they had the Qigong experts send Qigong, and they said, kill all the cells on the second tier. And so they tell them, and I guess there's a 3-tier thing. On the second tier, there's petri dishes. We want you to kill all the cells on the second tier. Mm-hmm. And it happens in double-blind studies over and over and over again. And this is, just one of many, many experiments that are out there in the quantum physics world to prove that, that there is spooky action at a distance, just to prove that there can be this energy that travels seemingly through any substance and it may be at any distance,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, the same thing actually applies to, I think they called it the Washington study. I'm trying to think what they called it. The crime study. I don't know if you're familiar with it. You might be.
But the ones that was done with the transcendental meditation.
Well, I've heard it done with prayer groups. Probably meditation too.
Yeah, the TM people have been doing this experiment for years.
Yeah. And in the experiment, essentially, they all agree to focus on, praying in a sense, or meditating on, or in some way positively focusing on Washington, D.C. during certain periods of time. And then they track what happens to the crime rate during those times. And consistently what they find is that the crime rate reduces by 20%. Mm-hmm. I mean, now there's
in other cities too. And
there's energy at a distance in a big way, and it's well documented. That study has been replicated a number of different ways. So, clearly there is some kind of influence going on there. Whether or not you believe it's LOA is up to you. But, I mean, if you're thinking good things about people and it brings the crime rate down, dang, why aren't we doing it more?
Yes. And as this show is addressing, why don't we do it with ourselves more?
Yeah.
Like, just so that we can say, I'm going to read you just a little section of Abraham.
Okay.
Basically giving an example of how this would sound if you start telling a story that is good for you. Here's an example, because you want to come from a place of, I would say, non-complaining. Basically, it's more about looking at the positive. You're looking for, what is it about my life that I could say right now? Not admittedly, this is coming from Abraham, but Walt and I will practice this too today. Okay, they say, I am abundant in nature, and well-being is always coming to me, and I'm often understood by the people that I'm interacting with, and I'm loving this life that I'm living, and it's fun to expand and grow. And I love the contrast of my environment, which helps me to continue to identify new things that I want. And often, in fact, usually, I'm not even a vibrational match to everything I want, but I can feel the difference. And I know how to lean in the direction of what I want. And my life just gets better and better. And I'm surrounded by people that are like me, learning about life. And it's really fun to be in this physical body and expand. And I get the sense of who I am. And often when I'm really not paying attention, I can feel that source within me is just sort of wrapping those non-physical arms all around me and through me.
That's
And
nice.
I can get a non-physical hug, so to speak, from the inside
I
out.
love it.
Sometimes I can just feel the well-being of my being. Sometimes I get glimpses of what's in my vibrational escrow, and I'm really enjoying how my life is beginning to unfold. I'm noticing that the people around me are more and more enjoying their lives also, and I'm feeling a freedom from detaching myself from what they're thinking or from what they're wanting from me. I'm doing such a good job of living my own life. I'm starting to realize the reason I came forth into this physical experience. So that's an example.
That's very cool.
In other words, you start practicing a story that resonates with who you really are, and you'll start offering the vibration of that. You see, you cannot become a vibrational match to who you really are and what's in your vibrational escrow, in your vortex, without everything that matches that actualizing around you.
Mm-hmm.
So as you begin to feel the predominant vibration, for example, of abundance, then abundance must seek its level with you. In other words, just like water flows downstream, abundance flows to somebody who's in vibrational alignment with abundance. So that's some example of how to do it, you know.
Yeah, that's very good stuff.
I was practicing before our podcast to see if I could do it in my journal.
No, but that's the perfect example, because first of all, everything in there is so nice. It just feels good to hear it, you know. It feels
that's the nice thing.
It feels very positive. So that alone makes it worthwhile. And then secondly, the fact that we're focusing on something that is good and that has good stuff to it, how can that not raise our vibration? How can that not make us feel better? You know, how can that not be a good, positive thing for us?
Mm-hmm. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do more of it. Let's do it every single day. I mean, that's
I'll do it right now.
Okay. So
see it.
Let's see. I think what I want to do is I want to tell it as, I mean, you were describing basically a list of affirmations. That's what Abraham was giving us. Well, good, not affirmations, but positive statements. Appreciations. Yeah, that's good. And I want to turn it more into a story. So let's see if I can turn it into a story.
Okay. And anybody who would like to call in with yours, please do, or call in and ask any questions.
Yeah.
Has anybody contacted us in the chat room?
I don't believe so. Let me just take a quick look. Last I saw, we did not have anybody there, but nope, looks like it's just the pair of us. And for those who have thought about it and haven't joined in, it's real simple. Right at the homepage, where if you're listening live, you're right there. Just click on the Zoom link, and it'll help you download the software, and boom, you'll be right there with us. So, feel free to jump right in, because we'd love to hear from you, either about this or anything else that you want to talk about. I mean, if maybe you've got something you're working on and you want to get some input, or maybe you just want to share a win, whatever it might be, we'd love to hear from you. So, okay, getting to my story. So let's see. I'm going to make up a story. I don't even know what it's going to be about yet. Okay. So earlier today, I was working on the book. And while I was working on the book, I got two of the little stories done, which was great, because I was ripping right through it. And what I loved about it is I was doing it after I had a bunch of work I had to get done in the morning. So I had like a 2-hour window to work on it. And I got 2 stories knocked out in an hour, which was really great. I love the feeling of that. I love the way it just kind of flowed. I mean, literally, we talked about it before the show, Tom, how both of us use dictation software. And I was using dictation software to write these. And I got to tell you, I knew what story I wanted to tell in both cases. I mean, obviously, they're stories that came from my own life, so it's not like I had to make it up. But I just enjoyed the fact that it was flowing. I would start the story, and I hardly even hesitated. I would just keep talking into the microphone and watching it type what I was talking, and new paragraph, begin sentence, and put a period in, new paragraph, just working my way along. And I checked my clock, and I did one whole story in like 10 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, I was in a flow. I was in a great flow, and it just felt so good. And then I took a quick break, and I sat down to do the second story, and it flew just the same way. The flow was just so easy. There was no effort to it. It just kind of came out. I would have gotten even more stories done, except I had an interruption that came in the way. So I didn't even get my full 2-hour window. I got probably, I don't know, including the break, probably an hour and 5 minutes. I mean, there really wasn't much to it, and yet I got 2 full stories done. And I think about how there are so many people who, if they try to sit down to write a story, they'll take hours. It'll take days. And here it was just flowing so simply.
That's beautiful.
It was great. I loved it. And now that's a real story. I wasn't making that one up. That was true. That actually did happen today.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's easier to tell a story that's a true story, but that's the first one that came to my mind that, oh, yeah, that really did happen today.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if I can talk about, I think I'd like to talk about, I'll just talk about my life going forward from this point, from tonight. Let's say starting right now.
All right.
I'm just excited that I'm here doing this podcast because it feels good to know that I'm engaged with the kind of work that I love, that I'm able to talk about things that mean so much to me. And I feel like, whenever I just get into this energy, I elevate up into this energy, what I feel like I'm doing is I'm syncing up with my higher self. I'm syncing up with my source self. That it seems like that source self really doesn't hang around in those kind of places of lethargy or feeling uninspired. It's always kind of drawing me into this place of feeling better and better. And I feel like I can do that in a way that it enlivens my life, that I do it in a way that, for example, this evening, as soon as I get off the podcast, I'm going to fix my dinner, and then I'm going to have an hour or two before I go to bed. And I'm feeling like, how can that be the best time of my day? How can that be? Because I always want everything that's coming to be the best of everything. And
right.
And I feel like that's how Source sees things. Source is just always fresh and in the moment. And I feel like I'm a person who is choosing that, and I'm choosing to look for what is unfolding, what is good, what is joyful, and also to be relaxed about it, not feeling like I've got a big agenda, that I've got to always be on, I've got to always be hooking into my highest self, but that it's okay, if I want to watch something on television, if I want to just lay down and close my eyes and listen to some beautiful music, I don't have to please anybody. There's nobody that can ever evaluate me. It's only my relationship with myself that matters. So I feel like I'm just, cultivating this sense of the fact that I have great respect for who I am and what my choices are. And I'm never going to be the person who puts myself down. I'm always going to be the person who's going to build myself up. And if I do get at some place where I don't feel so inspired and I don't feel at all motivated, that's just going to have to be okay, because if I can't love me, I don't have it. What else can I do? It's got to be me that loves me.
Very true.
I want other people to love me too, but you know what? It's got to be me that really takes good care of me. So here I am, with the evening ahead of me, and then a wonderful night of sleep, and a whole nother day tomorrow. Like, how can I just be in a nice, easy place with myself? So that's my choice going forward.
Very nice. Yeah, that's good. You remind me of when I was first doing my mirror exercises that I started doing about a month and a half ago, and I'm still doing today. I remember the feeling, and I've talked about this before, the feeling of how challenging it can be to say things like, I love you, while I'm looking at myself in the mirror, because that seems so egotistical or something, right? But it's interesting how I was able to get used to it. And I can actually do every single day. I do usually 30 to 45 seconds on how much I care about myself, how proud I am of myself, how I feel good about myself. I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel good about what's going on in my life. And to be able to keep doing that over and over again is, whoa. Every single day I've been doing that, and every single day my self-esteem has been flying through the ceiling. It's been great.
Do you find that self-talk is showing up when you're, in the kitchen just getting something to eat, or when you're getting in your car to go somewhere? Is it, you find yourself talking to yourself in an improved, more positive way?
Yeah, I think, I don't think anybody has perfectly pure positive self-talk, but yes, I think that I have gotten to the point now where I'm much kinder to myself in the self-talk. I'm also kinder toward others. It's worked both directions. I've gotten to the point now where I'm really a lot more careful about what I'm going to say that involves any other person. Not because I'm consciously being more careful. I just am. I'm just doing it. It's just part of who I've become. You know, so I like that a lot.
So yeah, I guess one question I'm asking to myself and you and to the listeners is, do you want to develop a practice of cultivating this? Because
Yes.
I feel like I do. And then I read something like that by Abraham, and I think, I could do that. I mean, that's what I was kind of just doing. I was
Hmm.
just sort of going in the direction of asking myself as I would speak, what do I really want to say about my situation that's uplifting to me and soothing to me? And what do I want to say about my life that feels better than saying anything that could be at all disparaging or at all, like off color
Right.
that, and it doesn't mean I don't want to admit the fact if I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling, bad in any way, I can definitely admit and accept those feelings. But then if I'm going to do a practice of talking more positively and telling a better feeling story, then that can be a set practice. I mean, that's what we do in this channeling class I'm in. If you don't channel every day, and channeling is when you just take a piece of paper and open yourself up to letting your higher self just write onto that paper, and that's what I was doing before the podcast. I just ask a
Oh, you
question,
were.
like, what can you tell me about how to tell better feeling stories? That's what I asked my higher self. And then I got a couple pages of stuff that I wrote down about that came through me.
Very cool. That's good. It's kind of like a reassuring thing that tells you you're on the right track because it does feel good when you do it, right?
It does, and yet it's so connected to my own self opinion of myself that it's almost like it's expressing your highest level of confidence in the fact that you are actually an infinite being. There actually is something in you that knows, that has great wisdom, that has great kindness, that has great patience, that has great love, and that thing wants to express itself in a way that your life can really open up. You can attract the abundance you want. You can attract the friends you want, the partner you want, the money you want. You can attract these things because you're in a place where you truly are happy,
Hmm.
and you're truly feeling good. And yet we can sort of talk ourselves into that. We
Yeah.
can develop the ability to always be our own best friend and say something supportive of ourselves all the time.
Yeah, we're taking advantage actually of a really important definition that Abraham gave us, one that I've really taken to heart, which is the
Uh-huh.
definition of belief. A belief
Uh-huh.
is a thought that you think over and over again.
Yeah.
And by doing positive self-talk, what we're really doing is we're supplying ourselves with a collection of beliefs, and when we repeat them, we really actually start to believe them in bigger and bigger ways. Well,
Especially when they come to us spontaneously. We're not like just writing down 10 beliefs we have and then reading them.
well, it will work both ways, but you're right. When it's
That'll work too,
spontaneous,
as
yeah,
long as we feel it.
right.
It's the thing that I just was trying to get in touch with a little bit ago when I was speaking and letting it come through me was that I need to be in the place of elevating into the
Yes,
feeling, you might
yeah,
say,
right.
to where I get inspired. I'm not just doing it to motivate myself. I'm letting myself get some inspiration. How do you open yourself to inspiration at a drop of a hat? And that's really what this is about in a lot of ways.
It is. I mean, because when we're opening up like that, and it is a skill. I mean, you've been working on this skill for some time, but when you've developed a skill to the point where you're opening up like that and you're doing it on a regular basis, you are drawing from what is often called inner being. You're drawing from inside. And that
Yeah.
inside, this is another thing that I've really taken to heart that Abraham teaches, which is that your inner being always thinks the best of you. They're always
Right.
focused on the best side, which means that anything that comes from inside, I never really trusted what came from inside, but now I know I can trust what comes from inside because it's all good stuff coming to me. So
Yeah.
as long as I
Yeah.
can differentiate between my brain feeding it to me and something coming from inside, I know what to trust. It becomes very straightforward as to what I trust.
Hmm.
And when I can trust it, then I know that I can believe it. It has energy behind it because truly my inner being is giving me stuff, giving me information, giving me things to think about, things to say that are already stuff I'm going to be passionate about, stuff that I'm already going to be interested in, emotionally connected to in some way. So that effect that you're talking about of having the belief already built in, of having the passion of it built in, is going to happen just because, like you say, you're channeling from within. You're drawing the information from within. Whereas on the other side of the coin, so to speak, if all we're doing is just repeating a bland affirmation every day, yes, eventually, if you can keep at that, that will turn into a belief. But it's so much easier when it comes from inside.
Yeah, it's like night and day. And Abraham even said you could say affirmations till the cows come home or till you're blue in the face and still not get any result from them if there's no real inspiration behind it. It's gotta be triggering a good feeling place inside of us. And
somewhere
when we do this positive self-talk, I just feel like sometimes you fake it till you make it. I mean, sometimes I say positive things I believe, or you have that, like I had that thing on my dashboard for so many years that said things are always working out for me. And it didn't matter what mood I was in. As long as I saw that, I gave that the benefit of the doubt. I said, yeah, I believe that. I do believe that. And I'm going to believe that. I'm going to keep believing that, that things are always working out for me, even though right now I feel like crap, but I feel like, things are working out for me. And then they do, I mean, just that saying alone helped me so many days. I can't tell you. Probably hundreds of days where I saw that, get into the car or I'm driving down the freeway and I just notice it on, because it reflected in the dash. It was written like in a mirror writing, and then it reflected up in the dash on your windshield. So set it on your windshield.
And like you said, you connected to that. That's what made that work. You connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a whole bunch of things like that during the time that I was really struggling with my own self-talk, I would print out on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper a quote of Abraham that had just come to me from some source. I was getting these quotes every day through my emails because you can get a quote a day from Abraham, and that's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
But and then certain ones I would put onto a piece of paper, put it in a really cool font, print it in big letters, and then I would put it up on my mirror. Or I'd put it somewhere in in my bedroom or something, in my kitchen, and it would be perfectly timed quote that would help me so much because it would remind me to go to that place with my thinking, go to that place with my feeling, because the quote had so much relief in it. It had so much hope, of exactly where I was at. Like one of them, for example, was like so many people think their ship has gone out and they get down to the dock and they think, their ship has already come, their opportunity has passed them by, and that's it. And they said, but we want to tell you that go down to the dock and there'll be one ship after another ship after another ship after another ship. It says there's so many ships coming, you could never get all the cargo from them, And I thought, yeah, that's such a better way to think about my life, rather than things that pass me by in any way. No, it's just endless opportunities. So anyway, anything we can do like that gets us into that positive self-talk, and thinking in ways that are uplifting and inspiring, I think it's worth it.
Oh, it definitely is. If for no other reason than because it improves your morale, it improves your attitude, it brings your dominant, what do they call it, the emotional set point, which there really isn't one. That's a point I've thought about a lot lately. Abraham talks about the emotional set point. And the one thing that I have learned that is true about the emotional set point more than any other is that it's not set. It doesn't stay in one place.
The fact that your emotions move all the time.
Yeah, they're constantly in motion. So, I mean, if you took a freeze-frame photograph, you could catch an emotional set point for one brief instant in time, but that's about it. Right. They're constantly jumping around.
You know what the definition of emotion is?
What's that?
Energy in motion.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like that.
Emotion. So, yeah, it's good that you said that. Yeah, that it's never static.
It's never static, never at all.
Everything's malleable. I love that fact. That's one of the best things that I heard Abraham say. I quote that one a lot. Because people really get stuck in thinking that things are going to be a certain way, or that because they've been that way, they're going to stay that way, and
for good reason. That's what they've believed all their lives.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I have too in many ways.
Yeah, I have also. I mean, when we're faced with the concept that all of physical reality can change and is driven by thought, I mean, our minds literally boggle at that. They literally, the first time we hear that, the mind just can't grasp it. It's just too much because we're so used to the idea that a desk is a desk is a desk. A chair is a chair is a chair. What is what is. Like your friend said, we're talking about reality here.
Yeah, right. And that's the whole illusion of what is. That it's actually changing constantly too, but people don't realize it's changing based on what they think it's going to be next.
That's right. That's right. It's directly influenced.
And what is, I like how Abraham always says, what is old news. What is second it happens is it's already old news, and there's because the leading edge of the consciously creating universe is moving on constantly. And that's why they said science is so hard to ever get anything of a lot of value from science. That's the way Abraham sees it, is because they're focused so much on what is that they're always in a way looking in the rearview mirror. They're looking at things that have already happened, and then they have to have many double-blind studies to prove that it's happening that way. And what they're doing as the observer, they're actually determining what is showing up in those experiments.
Yes.
In so many ways, and they're looking backwards. They're looking at, okay, so then what happened, and then what happened, and then what happened. But life itself is moving in this constant flow of creative energy, so that the universe is like a fractal expanding, and it's constantly, this beautiful things are unfolding. But if we're looking backwards as to what happened and trying to prove something, we're putting our focus in the wrong direction.
It's in many ways that's true. I was actually touching on this briefly during the afternoon podcast with Wendy Dillard, but let me expand on it a little bit more here. The thing that really turned my belief around where it comes to this idea of the universe being malleable, of physical reality being malleable and changeable, because I used to believe it wasn't, is the first time I heard that quantum physicists have been able to prove that it is possible for a particle to be in two places at the same time.
Right.
And when I heard that, I said, my first reaction, everybody's first reaction when they hear that is, that's impossible. And yet they proved that it is possible.
Right.
Well, how do you, first of all, emotionally deal with the fact that something that is clearly impossible now becomes possible? The only way to do that I know of is to question every single assumption that science used to get to that point, recognizing there's a flaw back there in the logical chain somewhere. And what Abraham alludes to very clearly is that there's the observer effect. In fact, many quantum physicists are on board with that. Yeah, the observer effect is real. I mean, some of them who are even claiming that there would be no reality without an observer. And so saying that you can create a double-blind study that will effectively nullify the observer and make it a truly objective study is disproven by quantum physics that says you can have a particle in two places at once, because that it just undermines the entire logical structure. So no, you can't assume that you can possibly have a truly objective study. Every time that an observer is involved for that particular kind of experiment, you get the same particle in two different places. Clearly, the observer is doing something, and the thing that they're doing is observing. Well, the moment that you're observing is the moment that you've skewed any possible study that you're doing. I don't care if it's double blind or not. You've skewed it, and until you come to terms with that, you're not going to truly understand what that revolution is all about. Who was it? Bohr, who said that if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't understand it.
Yeah, a number of quantum physicists that are ready to say that in an instant.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
From what I've been reading, a lot of them say that anybody tells you that they understand quantum physics, run the other direction.
That's right. That's right.
They don't.
Yeah. I mean, once you start looking at that stuff, it shakes the very foundation of your understanding of this fixed physical reality, because now you realize none of it's fixed. None of the old rules really do apply. Every one of them is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that, then literally, yeah, the mind can do all kinds of stuff. We just have to be willing to believe it. It turns out that the entire universe turns on belief. Who knew?
Yeah, well, I believe that.
I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild when you get into the realms of what's actually going on. It's that's why I like studying quantum physics, because I feel like just a little bit I've read, from the layman's perspective, and the simple books that I've read, which is maybe about 6 or 7 books that are addressing the whole issue that we're talking about. They all have just opened my mind to more and more expansive possibilities of how the universe, how nobody knows how the universe is organized or what it really is, because as they get deeper and deeper into quantum physics, they just see that there's room for myriad theories, everything from string theory to multiple universe theory, all these possibilities and they can all be discussed, and there's kind of theories about them and mathematically show why it's possible. And yet, that there has yet, I guess, to be one theory of everything, that really explains it all. Not that I need that, but it's just interesting that it's just a fascinating universe. We do not know what we're experiencing here, I believe. In many, many ways we don't. And
That's
in other
true.
ways we do, because we're experiencing, our emotions, and our emotions are giving us valuable life. We're having fun, we're having interest, we're having, disasters, but, we're having all these things, And
My wife was watching a TV show, actually, as a movie on TV earlier today from the 1990s called IQ. Do you remember that movie?
no.
Meg Ryan stars as the daughter or as the niece of Albert Einstein, and Walter Matthau plays Albert Einstein.
Oh,
and Albert has 3 of his other theoretical physicist friends who are, relatively important names from his era, and they all hang out together. They go do things together and so forth. And at one point during the story, one of his friends, I can't remember which one it is, theorizes that there's no such thing as time. And one of the other theorists says to him, "Well, when did you figure that out?" He says, "I don't know. There's no time. I have no way to calculate it."
Yeah, you can make endless jokes off quantum physics. I would like to see somebody's quantum physics comedy routine. That would be. I'm sure they're out there.
There's got to be one. There's got to be
And
more
I
than
bet you
one.
some quantum physicists have done them.
Oh,
There's probably
probably.
some famous quantum physicist comedian I don't even know about.
Two quantum physicists walk into a bar and 3 walk out, and it's the same 2. Oh, good grief. Well, this has been fun. Unfortunately, we didn't get somebody calling in. That would have been great. That would have just rounded it off. But sometimes we get a caller, sometimes we don't.
Last week we had a good call.
We did. Yep. It seems like 1 out of every 2 shows we get a caller, so that means we're due for one next week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, in the meantime, this has been good. We did have a good discussion.
I think I'm more in touch with who I am and what my life is all about.
That's good. I'm not sure what we'll do with the Friday show when you come back on next. I think I'll leave that in your department.
I think I'm going to come up with another topic that's a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we'll explore another topic. And by the way, for people who like to follow the daily podcast, Cindy Chavez will be doing the podcast with me tomorrow morning. Joel is in Florida. He is at his famous bench this week, and also spending time with his newly adopted son, and then enjoying some sun and sand and warm temperatures here in April. So Cindy's actually going to sit in for him on Thursday as well. So we're going to get Cindy 3 days this week. So Tom, we got you 3 times this week, and we got Cindy 3 times this week.
Fortunate for me.
Yeah, there we go. So just want to get that one in there too. So
all right,
we'll sign off. Tom's been great. I look forward to talking to you on Friday.
Thank you. Well,
but before we leave, we almost forgot, Tom. We got to give people a chance who want to have that personal touch, because some people do need to have that interplay. We talked about that earlier with somebody somebody who's a professional who knows how to guide them through where it is they're trying to get to. That's what you're good at. If somebody wants to reach you, how do they reach you?
They can go to my website. It's called youarejoy.com, and that's the word youarejoy.com. And what I offer is a free 1 hour of coaching, so you can bring whatever is of a concern to you that you want to work on, and we will do that for an hour, and then you can decide if you're interested in possibly doing more coaching with me without any pressure, and just see what it's like.
Perfect. Sounds great. Okay, now I can say, Tom, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you on Friday.
Thank you, Walt. I appreciate it.
All right. And we'll see you all as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.